Hello, my name is Bisi Akande and I'm called the Inspirer. I just want to share with you on what I titled How You Can Become a Master of Yourself. Simply put, three ways to self mastery, to achieving self mastery. Now, there's a story I read about from an author who was talking about leadership, and he mentioned how Arabian horses are selected and trained for very specialized responsibility. Now, the idea is to select horses that have unquestionable obedience. In other words, they were going to be horses that could listen to their master. So, what they do is that they start early in the age of the horse to teach them on how to hear and obey the master's command. So, at some point, they seclude the horses in a place, lock up the gate just away from water, and after a period of time they are released to go and taste the water or drink of the water. And just about the time they get close to the water, the master then blows the whistle, which is a command to say stop and come to where I am. Some horses will obey the master's command and they will just stop there, but there are some others who will just go ahead to the water in obedience to their thirst. So those who go to the water are left, and those who stopped are selected for those highly specialized and important roles that they have to play. In the same vein, if you're a leader, you must be able to gain self mastery, because that's the way that you actually lead yourself, which is the most difficult assignment of any leader, leading yourself. So the question is, what is self mastery? I see it as the ability of a person to respond to their inner calling, to listen to their inner voice. When you achieve self mastery, it means that you've been able to exercise power. The power that is given to us to control your desires, to control your emotions, to control yourself, so that you can do what is needed. It's actually a continual effort. That's what it demands, continual efforts. But when you become master of yourself, then you gain the ability to be an exemplary leader, to take better decisions. Now, leadership by example is what everybody advocates for, but you can't be a leader by example except you gain self mastery. Self mastery will grant you freedom to be yourself, to live your best life, and also the freedom to help others to live their best life. Now, here are my three easy ways that you can achieve self mastery. Number one is self awareness. Now, I often talk about self awareness because the truth is that the first step for you to get from here to there is to know where here is. You've got to be aware. You've got to understand who you are. You've got to understand your strength. You've got to understand what it is that makes you tick. You've got to understand what it is that you want in life. You need to be self-aware. How do your emotions play out? What are the stimuli that gets you to respond in a way that you're not supposed to respond? Why do you show out with that bad behavior? For example, why do you allow those habits to keep working on you? Where did the habits come from? What are the strengths that you have? Now, what are your weaknesses? Where are the places where, when you are poked, someone can get you to react in a manner that you would not like? What are the things that gets you to do those things that you often say you don't want to do? That's very critical. So you've got to be self-aware. Now, it's not something that you just do arbitrarily. I always would like to say that take that assessment, find out, dive deeper, use your strength test, whatever test you want to use, but get the assessment of where do you want to grow as a leader? Where is your what's your level of leadership today? Who are you influencing? To what extent are you influencing them? Self-awareness is very important. Check yourself, look into yourself, focus on your inner being, and find out what are the things. Gain insight about your action, gain insight about your thoughts, gain insight about your emotion, your triggers. It's important that if you want to achieve self-mastery, you must start with self-awareness. And the second thing I'd like to share is that you also need self-evaluation. In other words, you've got to be checking yourself to find out what's happening, how am I growing. Many times when you meet people who want to say, how are you doing? But I've now begin to ask a different question. Because when you say how are you doing, they say fine. But my question now is how are you growing? Because it's not just how you are doing that is the issue. What makes you better? It's not how you are doing right now, but how you are growing. Because how you are growing is what determines what you will do after now. So how are you growing? Evaluate yourself, check yourself out. See, whatever we don't measure becomes a problem. We've got to be able to measure it so that we can increase it. We've got to be able to measure it so that we can know how it's coming out, how it's turning out, and be able to find out the progress that we are making. So self-evaluation is the next step. And sometimes to really, really get yourself do a proper self-evaluation, you might need to ask questions from your team, questions from those who work with you, questions from those who are around you. Now, as leaders, we must be vulnerable enough, open enough to ask others around us about how they feel about our leadership. One question I like to ask is, how does it feel on the other side of my table? So to evaluate myself, I try to act like I'm on the other side. That means I come to my office and I sit as though I was visiting me, and I want to remember how I responded to the last person. And that way I'm evaluating my reaction or my response to people that come to me for one thing or the other in my leadership space. And the third thing is that you also need not just self-awareness, self-evaluation, but you also need self-regulation. See, when you know yourself, when you get your awareness right and you evaluate yourself, then you begin to regulate yourself. Okay, if you have done it wrong, how can you do it right? See, this means that you must understand how to deal with your mistakes, because sometimes we will miss to take it. That's right, that's what I call mistake, missing to take it. So I always say, okay, if you miss to take it, then next time you've got to be able to take it. And that has a lot to do with regulation. To regulate yourself, you need to learn the art of serenity. And that's the ability to be calm, the ability to think rationally, the ability to respond to a given situation. You've got to be able to self-regulate. See, people who are able to self-regulate, what happens is that in a split second, they are able to objectively think about how the consequence or what the consequence of their action would be before they take that action. And that's why serenity, calmness of mind is very important for them. So if you want to up your game, you want to move up the level of leadership, you want to go higher and take on more critical, highly specialized roles wherever it is, whether in your work or as an entrepreneur, one thing that is critical is you've got to be able to achieve self-mastery. And when you achieve self-mastery, then you become the exemplary leader that you are meant to be. Thank you very much. My name again is Bisi Akande. I'm called Inspire.